We are so lucky here on the Sports Cubicle to have somebody who's not only passionate about baseball, but covers it like a blanket in Paul Chivari. And Devin Tingle and myself, Mike Mercado, are here to kind of break down what has happened with Major League Baseball, the MLB Network, and Ken Rosenthal. For a lot of fans, this is an interesting story simply because of the offseason that is upon us for Major League Baseball. For those of you who aren't in the know of what happened in this situation, especially if you're not into journalism, broadcasting, the stuff that happens behind the scenes, it is something that was reported in the New York Post by Andrew Marchand. And this comes off the release of a Ken Rosenthal. His contract wasn't renewed for Major League Baseball's network. And this is after he was serving a suspension from MLB Network after he was criticizing Rob Manfred, obviously the MLB commissioner, of the way he handled the COVID-19 pandemic. And what I wanted to do right here on the Sports Cubicle, because there's a lot of fans that feel so many different ways about it. Some of them don't care. Some of them don't care about journalism in sports. They just want to watch the game. For a lot of other people, this is a big story because it seems to be a microcosm or a macrocosm of what's happening in Major League Baseball. So I throw it to Paul Chivari. And when you heard this news, you saw what was happening. What were your initial thoughts of Ken Rosenthal not being brought back, not necessarily fired? This is coming off a suspension, but being let go of Major League Baseball's network and where we're at now when it comes to the perception of Rob Manfred.
Well, I guess I wasn't surprised, if if the story was true that he was critical of Rob Manfred, which he was. I mean, I don't have an athletic subscription, but I definitely would read what I can. And Ken Rosenthal was critical throughout the whole case, but that's Ken Rosenthal. He really offers probably the best insight into Major League Baseball than anybody. And I can't think of other people, before him that covered it that tightly. And of course he would give his opinion because The Athletic is such a great, it's a great outlet for great journalism. So I think you tend to see great commentary as well in there, which congratulations to The Athletic for being purchased by the New York Times. That should be an interesting marriage right there going forward. But as far as MLB Network, yeah, that's the mouthpiece of the league. So anyone that goes against the grain of the greater good of Major League Baseball isn't going to get too much airtime over there. And let's be real, Ken Rosenthal didn't get that much airtime. It's been a while since I've had MLB Network, but I don't recall seeing him on there a lot. But at the same time, a lot of great baseball insiders make appearances on that network. I want to say John Heyman is like a full-timer there now. You got Brian Kelly. It's and I haven't watched it recently, so I don't know who they got there now. But it's always been the best insight into the league. So of course you'd want to have Ken Rosenthal, who's the best there is right now. You'd want to have him on your network. So I'm not surprised that if Rob Manfred was that petty that he wouldn't want him on the network. But the important part is as long as Ken Rosenthal has an outlet like The Athletic where he's doing his best work anyway. And also, I can't imagine a World Series without him doing some sideline reporting. So, as long as he's got that, I think we're okay. But, it only hurts the MLB Network and the league. And, of course, if that's true now, what people know, it's like, how do you clean that up? It seems like Rob Manfred or the league can't do anything right. And now they still have a labor dispute to go over in the next few months here. And it just seems like they've got to pull a Hail Mary here. A Hail Mary to really get people back into it and believing in this league.
It's fascinating because there was a lot of reports and a lot of testimony and a lot of different journalists and high-profile journalists at that who came out in defense of Ken Rosenthal and really put Major League Baseball and the commissioner on blast. And here's a tweet from the great David Aldridge. Obviously, if you're an NBA fan, you've seen his work on the sidelines and his reporting. He tweeted out, "I worked for Turner Sports, which operated NBA TV and NBA.com in partnership with the league for 14 years. You know what David Stern did when I wrote or said something he didn't like? He called me up and cussed me out. But he didn't go to my bosses and try to fire me." And I think that is the sentiment that is just filled by so many people that is filled and fueled by what we've seen from the commissioner, all the pettiness, all the new market social media endeavors, and the way he called the commissioner's trophy, what he called it, a piece of metal. Like, we've seen the breadcrumbs of how the commissioner feels about Major League Baseball in general, or at least where that perception is. But I kind of want to move the conversation to this for a moment, because I think, Paul, you hit it on the head. Ken Rosenthal is going to be just fine. He's got Fox, he's got The Athletic, he's got the cachet. He's going to be okay to land on his feet. I'm interested, and Devin, I'll throw it to you on this one, where we do a sports show. We get to talk to the fans, and we are fans, and we get to enjoy doing this for a living, but we aren't beholden to the NBA, to the NFL, to Major League Baseball, to the NHL. We can have an opinion. We could talk about anything. We can critique or praise whatever we want. But do you think that we are now in a really strange place when it comes to sports reporting, sports journalism, when you are going to the NFL Network, you are going to NBA TV, you are going to MLB TV, and they are now just deciding what you get to see? Like Paul said, these are the corporations. They're deciding what's on television. Do you think that we're in a really dangerous place right now? Because we're seeing that ESPN isn't really doing news anymore. So when you hear this story, what did you think?
I mean, to answer your first question, I would not say we're in a dangerous place. I mean, as all of us know, getting a job in this industry is a pain in the you-know-what. So finding more opportunities to get, people like us out there, obviously I'm going to praise here. And again, there are some issues here when we cover everything here. But again, our boss, Mark Pinsky, gave us a list. Here's all the things you guys can't say. Here's the things that you guys can't go. And if we go against those rules, he'd pull that show from us as soon as yesterday. And I got to say, I'm not saying saying Ken Rosenthal deserved to be fired by any means necessary here, but there's certain things you just got to know when you're going into an industry like that, especially there could be some repercussions here. I mean, going all the way above and over his head, that's some things, that, you don't, it happens in this industry, but it doesn't make it right. And definitely you got to be careful in these situations here. So do I think Ken Rosenthal deserved to get fired? No. A slap on the wrist, maybe, like, hey, don't go biting the hand that feeds this network, possibly. But again, as we're saying, he has other, fields. He's going to be just fine, in my opinion. But I don't necessarily agree with, letting go of. But at the same time, I got to play devil's advocate. I can at least understand MLB Network's decision there. But to your first question, I don't think this is a dangerous place. I think it's a good thing as we're getting more and more networks to get more hopefully young sports broadcasters out there.
I think where I get a little worried is not necessarily where the industry is at, because there are plenty of platforms. We have one. We created our own. I think where I am a little bit more skeptical on where that we might be going is the average fan. The average fan going to NBA.com for their basketball news, going to MLB.com for their news, NFL.com for their news, and we know now that they're going to try to push a message. I mean, if we're NFL fans here, we know that they're going to cut to a commercial when there's an injury on the field. We hear the music. We see Scott Hansen being on Red Zone saying, no, flip the channel. Injuries don't happen in the National Football League. So we know these companies, these entities are going to do whatever it takes to make sure that their message is out there. And Paulie, you've seen it. You've seen the entire maturation of how we've gone from, the newspaper and the magazines to the forums to now at this point on our cell phone right through our timelines. That where are you at when it comes to journalism and its relationship with the average fan and with the sports that they cover?
Oh, I think it's a greater conversation than through the lens of sports. But I think overall journalism is dying because of the corporate influence on it. You do see independent and smaller owned chains of people trying to do the hyper local sort of focus, or the hyper intense sort of focus on things, the niche sort of subjects that people are interested in. But I think, you were bringing up how ESPN doesn't really do news anymore. People just aren't interested, and I watch from time to time local news in a small market like Rockford. And it's just, they have to do whatever they can to make it, interesting for people to watch. But it's like, you're not getting your best journalism, I think, in certain areas. I think in the past we had tighter coverage on all angles for everything. And I'm talking about all encompassing, all around the world, everything, every subject matter. And I think you're seeing less and less and less of it ever since you have that corporate influence, because it's going to be the message that they want to put out there, less outlets to put it out there, and even maybe, totally manipulated where it's not even news. It's just more emotional fluff that doesn't really give you much fact.
Devin, do you think the fan cares about facts, or do you think they just want to watch their sports?
Well, it really depends on the fan here. Guys like you, me, Paul, Marver, of course, we're going to go and read the articles. Hell, we send each other articles throughout the week. And there are people that don't, host sports talk shows or a podcast or anything like that just, they'll read, they like to be informed because they really like sports. I know I got a coworker who does it all the time. But your average fan, I don't think they really do. I think they just want to watch their games and go here. I mean, I don't have cable, so I don't know about you guys. I don't even think MLB Network or even comes with like your standard cable package if you still have it here. But if you want to watch your local teams, we got NBC Sports Chicago. We got GN shows Cubs and Sox games. We got, Channel 26. There's definitely local outlets for your local teams. The Bears are on Fox and CBS every week. NBC when they got nights. ESPN only on Monday. I'm going to stop talking with those ones. But I think your average fan, they don't really care. They just, if anything, they just read the titles. Because I see some people share articles. It's like, oh, if you actually click this, you realize that headline has nothing to do with what the overall thing is here. So again, in the world of clickbait culture, I guess we got to say as we're moving on here. But the average fan, I don't think they care. I think they just want to watch the games and move on, and maybe know who's injured or who's going to play or who's going to start the next day.
And you just hit it correct right on the head. It's how does it affect my fantasy team? How is it affecting my parlay? What is the spread? We have always heard the joke that we root laundry, and we don't care about the people who are playing in said laundry. And I think in today's day and age, we are finally trying to understand mental health, physical health for these athletes. But when we're relying on these corporations to give us the news and we see something so blatant like this, I think it is really disappointing, or at the very least, it makes you raise an eyebrow of what exactly is going on. And all three of us obviously working in the political radio world as well, we see a lot of that. So I think it's going to be a story that's ongoing. But obviously, if you really are interested in the story and what Major League Baseball is doing this offseason, you have to check out the Baseball Weekend Journal with our man, Paul Chivari, at the head of the helm of that podcast. It is an amazing experience for baseball fans because you really feel the TLC that Paul brings to the subject matter. Paulie, we'll leave you with the final word on your thoughts of Ken Rosenthal and our conversation when it comes to his release from the Major League Baseball's network.
Oh, I just think, it's Major League Baseball Network's loss. He's the greatest there is. I mean, when it's all said and done, this guy's going to win. Was the Spink Award? Is that the writing award for the Hall of Fame? I mean, this is one of the greatest journalists of baseball of all time. I mean, there's a reason why he's the Athletics #1 guy. He was on MLB Network, and he's Fox Sports' sideline reporter for the World Series. It's because he's #1. So it's their loss. And I mean, you talked about David Stern getting on the phone. Would you ever imagine Rob Manfred getting on the phone? And as much as people want to talk about Bud Selig and how awful of a commissioner he was at least an owner. So I think he understood at least that aspect of it. Whereas Manfred is definitely the owner's pony boy. He's just a corporate guy filling a role and not really giving the best ultimatums that commissioners in the past have really, when they wield their power, are able to do some great influence and great change to the game for the overall good, where this guy just feels like he's just a puppet. That's all.
Let us know your thoughts. What did you think when you heard of the news that Ken Rosenthal will no longer be at the MLB Network? We are all over the universe. Follow us on Twitter at Sports Cubicle TV. We're on all major podcast platforms at Mercado Airwaves Network. Subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/Mercado Airwaves Network. We have a jam-packed show here on the Sports Cubicle. It's Devin Tingle. It is Paul Chivari, Dan Marver, and myself, Mike Mercado.